Today in the Tristen Law Show, you're going to hear from one of my oldest friends in the pro wrestling business. He's a pro wrestler, he's a father, and some may say he's a little off. Coincidentally, his name is Steve Off, and that's today on the Tristen Law Show. Welcome to the Tristen Law Show, where I introduce you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring. The unique part is you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan to enjoy this podcast. If it is your first time here, new episodes drop Wednesdays, and welcome. I'm your host, Tristen Law, and I'm glad that you're here for episode 29, featuring another personality in and out of the pro wrestling ring, my pal, one of the pillars behind pro wrestling magic, Steve Off. We're going to talk about how he got a brief gig with the WWE, how his tag team, the American Murder Society, got formed, and why he passed up on selling an idea to Comedy Central, and much, much more. I want to take a second to thank my day one listeners who've been here since episode 1. Look, if you've listened to my previous episodes, you know that I don't discriminate, but if you never, now you know I don't discriminate. So if you want to be a day one listener, it's not too late at all. All you have to do is just work your way back from episode 1 to 28. You got to listen to all the bonus episodes, but you don't have to listen to this one because you're going to listen to this one already right now. So don't listen to it again. But unless you want to, you can. But like I always say, better late than never. Even if this is your first episode, this is all possible because of you, and I'd love to hear from you. Follow me. Hang out with me on Instagram. My name on Instagram is The Real Big Tris. I started posting there more and more, and not only will you be cool, but you'll also be supporting the show. Up next is Steve Off. I am Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show. Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. That shirt you're wearing is so not cool. Why don't you head on over to TristenLawShow.com and get yourself a new shirt? Not only will you be cool, but you'll also be supporting the show. What are you waiting for? Go now and get a hat too while you're at it. Thank me later. We're the show at TristenLawShow.com. Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. My next guest is not only a cat dad, but he's also Luke's dad, too. He's one half of the tag team, the American Murder Society. He's one of my oldest friends in the pro wrestling business and a part of the foundation of pro wrestling magic. I'd like to welcome Steve Off to the Tristen Law Show. Steve, welcome.
One of your oldest friends. Goddamn, man. Had to throw that shit in there, huh? Oldest.
It's the truth. I mean, thinking about it, about all of my friends that I know in wrestling for so long, it's you, it's Darius Carter, it's Ray Mars, it's Eric Cooper. I just pulled that name out of the grave, Eric Cooper. There's so many other names. I don't want to start naming names because somebody's going to say that I forgot them. But if you've known me for a while, you're my oldest friend in pro wrestling.
I thought you were trying to say I'm an old man or something. I was going to say, well, you're right. But
I mean, you're
it's
only
good to be on, man. It's good to finally be on. It's been a minute, but
you're only.
I like to be that in case of fire, break glass guest where it's always going to be a good conversation, but you can get me anytime because as long as I don't have my kid, I'm always available.
Well, you're only 1 year younger than I am, so I'm not old, so you're not old, and
fair enough.
You were
agree that
you were on the top of my list. Looking at it, you're on the top of my list of people I want to interview when I created this podcast way back when. For shits and giggles, the number one person that I have on this podcast is Jimmy Corderas, the WWE referee.
I don't think I've ever met him. Maybe once when I was an extra, but I've heard that a lot about him. He's one of those dudes that it's very rare that you never hear anything bad about. Mm-hmm. He's one of maybe 24 that I know of that I've never heard a bad word about. So cool.
So I mentioned, Steve, that you are a part of the foundation of pro wrestling magic. For my
Mm-hmm.
listeners who may not know, explain to them how you're a part of the foundation for pro wrestling magic.
Well, I'm gonna just break kayfabe completely and go right into it because, like, I don't think interviews are ever in kayfabe anymore, and it's like the worst kept secret in wrestling in Northern Jersey. That I'm on the shows, but I'm also part of management. So one of the owners of Pro Wrestling Magic, myself, Anthony Iovino, and Sean Hanrahan, who used to play the Stephen Higgins character, all on the LLC. There's other guys involved, like Chris Callahan and Johnny Barbs used to be Gianni Malanga. The late great Chad Adams was one of the co-founders. So we all kind of, it started because we all were in a group text, and I hate them now because there are so fucking many. But it was like one of the early group texts, and we're talking about Raw and SmackDown, and like, oh, this was good, but this sucked, and this, just the guy talk and wrestler talk about, pretty much every aspect of the show. And I forget who it was, but when somebody goes, we could write better TV than this, and better shows than this, better live events than this, and Chris Callahan goes, well, why don't we? And it was kind of a fucking joke. And then it just was like, well, why don't we? And then we did it. So I'm part of the creative process, not the only one. I don't want to be, because no one has all the answers. Even if I'm right 90% of the time, which I'm not, but if I am, I still need somebody to curve that and, put me back in line the other 10%. So yeah, part of that process, part of the, oh man, it's the best and the worst thing, running a wrestling promotion. Absolutely do it, but absolutely never do it is my advice. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, it's the best and the worst.
I've thought about it so much, Steve, that I want to run a promotion in New York. I've looked through all of the hoops because it's not as easy to run a pro wrestling show in New York State as it is in the state of New Jersey. And I've looked at all the hoops that I've had to jump through, and I really want to jump through it because just like you said, looking at the television and saying, hey, I feel I can do better than this. Instead of being a Sunday afternoon quarterback, or a Monday morning quarterback, why don't I just go ahead and try it myself? And if I fail, then I fail. I know I can't do better. But if I do good, then I do good. So I'm totally on the same exact page with you.
I would stay away from New York if you're going to try it, because New York and Pennsylvania are the fucking worst that I know of, that are a pain in the ass especially New York, but Pennsylvania's bad too.
Right, because in New York, you need a license.
There,
doctor, license, ambulance, all that in New York.
Doesn't in Pennsylvania, like, it doesn't have to be a medical doctor, which makes no fucking sense, but it's Pennsylvania, so
Hey, right.
Yeah, you kind of get what you pay for there, and I don't pay for anything in Pennsylvania. Fuck that state. Although if you're from there, I might love you, but the state itself, if you live there, it's a shithole. Jersey ain't much better.
So how did all of the minds come together in the group text to decide on the name Pro Wrestling Magic?
So originally, a little spin-off here, but same, is very relevant to the question. Myself and my ex were planning to move to Florida, which, I wish we would have, and kind of glad we didn't. That's a whole other thing. But we were supposed to move to Florida, and Chris Callahan and his girlfriend were down there. And we're like, well, why don't we start it there? And then we can work it back to Jersey if shit goes well, because we're going to fly back to see family. And, so originally it was going to be down there. We used the magic thing, Pro Wrestling Magic, because I don't remember if it was me or him that thought of it, but it was during a conversation between us. So we were kind of going back and forth. We figured we're both huge Disney marks. And so was everyone else in the group chat at the time was a huge Disney. Evan Myers was in it too. I think I might've left him out before. I don't want to leave anybody out. So we're all huge Disney marks, and most of us are into Harry Potter too. So the magic thing and being near Orlando, because Chris was in that area, we were looking at that area. It all just kind of fit, and it sounded cool. It sounded really cool. At first, I didn't like it. I was like, it sounds too corny and like cartoony, and I'm like, well, maybe that's what we'll offer, maybe that product. But didn't wind up being all that cartoony. It's more of like a platform for guys who deserve a shot, who are not getting one. Nut up or shut up, throw you in the deep end. And well, now it's the deep end. Back then we had like 30 people there. Now we have like 60, but only because we're only allowed 60. It's 100 now.
When I left pro wrestling to go ahead and now focus on life, I remember seeing the rumblings of Pro Wrestling Magic doing its thing, and I always knew that you were involved, obviously because we're friends, and I always saw the things that you did. And I remember, sadly, as long as I've known you, granted, I don't feel it's right for me to be like, hey, can I get booked? Can I get booked? So I've never been to a show, but my schedule started freeing itself up because I was no longer a manager at a corporate America retail store. So I had a lot more free time. So I started able to go around and do things. And one of the things I did was I was able to check out your show. I think it was the last show before they shut down the entire world. And let me tell you, bro, you sold that place out. I don't care what anybody tells me. It was a sellout. There was standing room only.
Yeah, we might or might not, I cannot confirm or deny, we might or might not have gone over the fire code a little bit that night. But fuck it. Technically it wasn't over the fire code, but with the ring in the middle, it probably was. But yeah, no, December, January, February of 2019 to 2020, we were standing room only. And then, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm still alive, but a lot of people aren't. But at the same time, it sucks because I know where we would have been if we would have kept going, and probably further along than I even think we would have been. But, there's no excuses, and just build it back up. And they will come back. We've been selling out the allotted, with the distancing and the laws and all that, the allotted amount of tickets. We've been pretty much selling it out every time. Maybe, give or take 3 or 4, but then I'll invite some friends to come because my OCD, we can't have seats open. We got to sell it out. And promoter pride and OCD mixed together is, but yeah, man, it kills me to think about it because I know, especially now with Fight and the pay-per-views and all that, we would have been in a really good spot. We're breaking even now with few people in the crowd and a couple pay-per-view, well, not more than a couple, but not as many pay-per-view buys as I'd like. Good starting point, but point is we're breaking even, and when we have no business breaking even during a pandemic, even we should be hemorrhaging money, and we're not.
Right.
So I'm just looking forward to this vaccine finally being allowed to roll out. I won't get too much into that, but definitely looking forward to that finally being allowed to happen, and hopefully the supplies will keep up. Everyone can get it that wants it, and the people that don't want it, well, you're taking chances. So be it.
So going back to the name, Steve, what were some of the other choices of names aside from Pro Wrestling Magic?
There was a couple just random generic sounding indie names. I don't remember offhand. I think it was like Championship Wrestling or Florida. No, Florida Championship Wrestling was taken, but it was Orlando Championship. It was a couple of things that were Florida based that were local. I'm I don't really want to do local, because what if we come up here? That doesn't work. And, that Magic thing was thrown around actually pretty early on. We really didn't have too many alternative names. So I wanted to name it Championship Wrestling Federation, CWF, after my old backyard wrestling company from when I was in middle school and high school, before I started training. But, little nod of the cap there.
So what's
the cap of the past? But yeah, at first I wanted that, but then the Magic thing came along. I'm like, man, that's too good to waste. We have to.
I like that so much because you guys didn't put yourself into a box. Right. How could you be Championship Wrestling from Florida Championship Wrestling, or even if you decide to stay in Jersey and life was different and you decide to call it, New Jersey Championship Wrestling. Now, how do you promote that to somebody in Delaware? Now, Pro Wrestling Magic, you could watch it anywhere. It doesn't matter where you live. If you like pro wrestling and you want to see the magic, check it out.
Yeah, that was one of my things about Jersey All Pro too back in the day. If you remember them, Jersey All Pro Wrestling, one of the best independent companies I've ever seen, bar none. But the name Jersey, I was like, they're good enough to tour. Why are they pigeonholing themselves? I never understood that. Now, that's just one example. There's other ones, but that was the promotion for a while. So I don't. I'm not a fan of in general of companies Jersey, East Coast, West Coast, because what if you ever want to make it bigger? It's probably going to be the same building with the same fans and, making the same decent amount of money, and that's fine. But what if it goes really well and you decide to go over here and, like you said, it's not you could probably still market it, but they're going to be like, oh, why do I want to go see wrestling from another state? Especially if they don't like that state, Jersey,
True.
Not a big fan myself, and I live here. So,
so what sets Pro Wrestling Magic apart from everybody else?
We give a shot to the guys who deserve a shot but aren't getting one, just like we originally had set it up for. And yeah, we use the name guys and the buzz guys that are working everywhere because you got to draw a crowd. But the main focus is building stars, not oh, let's just pack the place and book everybody, and let's book this name and that name, and anybody who's not been outed as a piece of shit, let's book them all. Like, anybody who's not on that list of scumbags, let's book. No, let's book one or two of these names that are, have a good reputation but let's make it about our crop of talent, because there's not a single person in the locker room right now. There've been a few in the past I wasn't sure about, just gave a shot to, but right now there's not a single motherfucker in that locker room I wouldn't bet absolutely everything on them possibly becoming a star if they put the time and the work in and they do it the right way. There's not a single person I'd say, no, not that guy, not that girl, not that tag team. No, not a single one. So I think I wouldn't say it's the best locker room in all of wrestling, because that's like overstated. Definitely top 10. I haven't been in a lot of them that are like the best locker, so I don't know, but definitely one of them. Well, talent-wise, attitude-wise, we had a couple of guys who, ego, but we don't anymore. So, now that I said that, someone's going to pop up with an ego next show and be like, oh, I need more money, whatever it is. Now that I jinxed myself. Ugh.
Who have you had on the roster as a talent in Pro Wrestling Magic that you've given a shot to that has gone on to something bigger?
Keith Lee. He was just starting to get some buzz on the indies. And by the way, I'm not taking credit for any of these guys' success. We gave them an opportunity, and now we're selling the footage and making money off it, so everybody wins. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. But Keith Lee was definitely the top one. Nicest guy you'll ever meet. So chill, so calm. He can kill you with his bare hands.
I'm sure.
You'd never know it. If you look at him, you know it. But like, this big badass dude, but he's so chill. He was playing Pokemon with the help, like the front end staff. Like, that's cool. You don't even expect that out of like the nobodies, and he was starting to kind of get buzz. Like, right. Good dude. Private Party, they were the tag team champions for us for a while. Always good guys, always easy to work with. They were definitely there for more than 2 or 3 shows. I don't think they were there for that long, because our dates started clashing with like other dates they had, and like we just kind of like, all right, well, let us know when you want to come back around when it works for you. It was like the 3rd Saturday monthly we ran, and at first there was no competition. Then it seems like everybody's running that weekend. Probably coincidence, but those guys. Leo Rush. Leo was kind of already on the rise when we brought him in, but we used him quite a bit. He was very cool. You read mixed stuff about him on the internet. I can't say after he left what he became like, but when he was with us, super respectful, chill guy, like, everything you want in a talent, and he always delivered. You put him with anyone, he always delivered. Those are the main ones that come to mind. There's others like Jordan Grace too. I mean, she was really like, she had already kind of climbed the ladder of the indies, and we were kind of there. So those are like the main ones that come to mind. We've had like Tommaso Ciampa, Cody Rhodes pass through. Tommaso is a really good dude too. I'm glad to see he's succeeding and, doing well. And same with Keith. I'm glad to see him just killing it.
With that, with all those names that you've named, if I was a pro wrestling fan looking for a new wrestling product to check out, and I was listening to you right now, Steve, I would say, wow, I'd want to check out Pro Wrestling Magic, because I don't know who I'll ever see. If I live close enough, I'd go buy a ticket, because I could get an autograph from somebody that may be a nobody today in the terms of big scale, and then tomorrow they could be main eventing NXT or WrestleMania. That's pretty cool what you guys have done for people.
I mean, yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, like usually it's not an overnight turnaround like that. You might take a couple months, but I see your point. You're definitely meeting the future stars. I guarantee. There's only so many spots. I'm not saying everybody is from our roster is going to make it. I'm saying everybody should and could. If there were enough places to work and enough job openings, yeah, they're definitely capable.
Sure.
Like Jersey Muscle Society and Casey Navarro have done shows for us. Jersey Muscle, like 15-time tag team champions for us, like really 3, but I'm exaggerating a bit. They've been on AEW recently, which had nothing to do with us directly, but it's still cool to see.
So, Steve, you know that I love Back to the Future, so we are going to jump in the DeLorean, and we're going to go way back. We're going to go way back before Magic. We're going to go way back before the hair spikes. We're going to go back to when you were simply a fan. How did you discover pro wrestling?
So I was at my buddy's house, and we were either playing video games and or watching horror movies, because that's like what we did as kids. We were, girls didn't really like us. We liked them. They didn't like us back. So we just hung out together. We played video games, watch movies and stuff. And he's like, oh, we got to watch Nitro. I'm like, what's that? He's like, yeah, we got to flip back and forth between Nitro and Raw. I'm like, what are those things? What are you talking about? And he's like, oh, it's wrestling. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I watched it before. This is like 1998. I watched it before, but besides like Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and the Hart family, I didn't, Yoko was kind of cool too. I didn't know anyone. I didn't really follow. I'd watch here and there on like Saturday mornings in the early 90s, and then I kind of lost track because like it was jobber stuff. It didn't interest me. But he put on Nitro, and we were watching it for a little bit, and it was Mortis against Glacier, which is like the most random, mid-card feud of all time. Now looking back on it, no one probably remembers that but me. Now, the characters, yes, but that specific feud, I don't know if anyone actually remembers that feud, but I'm like, yo, this is dope. And then we'd switch to Raw, and we have Kane saying he's going to light himself on fire if he loses. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is he really going to do that if he loses? He's like, yeah, he's probably not going to lose. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. I got nothing against the guy, but I kind of want to see a human being on fire. Like, I was a fucked up kid. I don't know. But, that and just switching back and forth. And I was a Raw guy. I'd watch Nitro occasionally. Like, if I heard something cool happen, my buddy would call me earlier and be like, yo, you got to catch the replay. I would not. I'd be asleep, but I'd record it, back on a VHS back in the Stone Age, back when we went to school with Moses and Jesus and all those people. Not literally, but we, but yeah, I got into it that way. My dad was looking to take me to a show. It was coming around here about a month or so after I was like getting heavy into it, but I didn't know everybody yet. I really only cared about like Austin and Kane and Mankind and Undertaker, DX, and the Nation, and that's a lot of guys, but like that was it. Like the DX Nation feud, and like the girls, obviously, like come on. But especially back then, when they were allowed to wear less. I'm a 12 or 13-year-old kid, But my dad took me to an episode of Raw. I'm like, Dad, you don't have to. The tickets are probably expensive, and I don't really know everyone. I'm only invested in like these like 2 things, and that's it. And he's like, no, fuck it, let's go. They're not that expensive. I'm like, oh, all right. And I was hooked. And then like a year or less later, went to a show at the high school I later wound up going to for high school. Independent show. Company that later wound up being JCW, Jersey Championship Wrestling, which I think is now GCW. I don't know if it's the same or if like, I'm not sure. But yeah, I was hooked. The combination of the two, I can't really pinpoint one, but man, the combination of the two, I was like, I was already hooked, but now I'm going to do this with my life. I don't care what it takes, how much money I lose, if I'm, poor, whatever. I'm going to do it until it works. And my dad was like, well, go to school first. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. It wasn't a great idea, but I did go. So
I liked how you were talking about that's what hooked you, and that's the moment where you said to yourself
mm-hmm.
that you wanted to do this. So walk us through. Your dad said that you had to go to school. So you went to school, obviously. So how did
only because I had to.
I agree. That's the only reason I went for the time that I did went. How did you find your first pro wrestling school, and what was that pro wrestling school?
Oh, well, we're about to do the cheap plug. They're not there anymore, but we'll still give a shout out to those that deserve it. So I was going to the JCW events like religiously when they were in North Jersey, which was like 90% of the time. Did a couple down south, and my parents are both like, yeah, we're not driving you. I didn't drive, so kind of fucked. But whenever they were up here, we go to the shows, we check it out. One time, the promoter Ricky O asked me, he's like, hey man, can you hang out after the show and help out with the ring? And I'd been in the ring once or twice prior because he hooked it up. He was friends with my dad, just to try it out and see, because I was too young to really go for it. But he asked, he's like, hey, can you help us out with the ring? We're short on staff. I get you in the next show for free. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. That's an easy deal for me. You're saving me 10 or 15 or 20 bucks to do really hard manual labor. Yeah, I'm down. But yeah, I got to talking to one of the guys on the ring crew who I lost touch with after that day. I never saw him again. There's an angel sent from heaven to direct me in the right way or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's one dude on ring crew. We're talking. He's like, you train at all? You love wrestling. You're doing ring crew. You train? Do you train? I'm like, no. I'm like, I did a day or two in the ring. I was a favorite to my dad's friend, but like, no, I don't know where to go. I can't afford this school. This one rejected me because I'm small, and like this one's in Texas, and yada yada yada. And like, he's like, oh well, there's one right down the road. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, there's one like right down the street. It's like you could walk there. I'm like, how come I never knew about this? He's like, man, I don't know, but this is before social media, kids. It was big. It was just starting. This is in like 2003. It was just kind of starting, or people I know were just starting to sign up for it. I didn't bite that bullet till like 2004, 2005, but it was kind of just starting. The internet was still, it wasn't new, but like you didn't really promote wrestling too much on it. You'd have to know what sites to go to find what show was coming up. It sucked. So the dude gave me the info. He's like, they're here these days. Richie Rotten and Magic and Chaos sometimes is there, and it's Body Slam U, and they have indie shows. They have BWO shows right in the building, and they have belts and the crowd. It's cool. And he's really putting it over to me. I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. I'm like, listen, once you told me it was down the road, I was checking it out, but because the shows are run really close. They were like a 10-minute, 15-minute ride. I was like, yeah, well, I was already checking it out. Now I'm definitely checking it out. I don't remember how long later it was. Not too long. Went in to check it out with my parents. I think my mom at the time, maybe my dad, I don't remember, but like we went to check it out, and they were like, do you really think, I don't remember if this is the first time there or after that, but my dad goes up to him and he's like, listen, man, you really think he's got a shot? He's a 16-year-old kid. He's scrawny. He's never been athletic. And Richie said, absolutely. So you think he can make it somewhere? Absolutely. You think he can make money at this? He's like, not a doubt in my mind. I can't promise you he will. He said, but it's what people make of it. If he makes the most of the opportunities he's given, yes, he'll probably succeed. He has every chance to. And my dad just kind of looked at him and said, okay, we'll see. I hope so, but we'll see. But yeah, I went in there. I immediately knew that's where I needed to be, because guys were working their ass off, but everyone was friendly. I mean, I'm sure there were a couple of dickheads, if I really thought back, I could think of, but especially 2003, like it wasn't like it is now. Not that it's perfect, but like there were a lot more dickheads back then. But BWO was Body Slam was just so cool, so chill. There were 2 rings. That impressed me. Now you see the Performance Center with 7. It's kind of like, okay, 1 or 2 is not impressive. But back then I'd never seen, except for like the War Games stuff. And I hadn't seen it at that point, I don't think. Never seen 2 rings in one place before. I was like, oh, that's so fucking cool. And yeah, I signed up right there. It was $10 a session. So I really didn't have to put any money down. Paid for my first session, came back a couple of days later, and I would say the rest is history. It was a long, bumpy road, but pretty much the rest is history.
Was this the Hasbrook Heights location?
No, this was the Garfield location, the original. I'm dating myself big time with this, but they started the school and the promotion in either 2000 or 2001, I believe. Like 2 or 3 years before I started. That's how I remember. They're like, oh, it's kind of new. That's why you haven't heard of it. I'm like, oh, all right, cool.
Okay.
Richie brought out the heavyweight belt and the tag belts, and I'm like thinking, I didn't say it because I knew it would sound like a mark, but I'm like, yeah, those with a partner and that on my own someday, and I did. Thanks to Richie and everyone else that gave me an opportunity from there, I got the opportunity to live that first indie dream of like, and I never gave a shit about belts, like other than that, because that was the first place I went to. And I was like, that one and those 2, I'm gonna do it somehow.
So for me, I didn't go to BWO until it was in the Hasbrook Heights location. And for those of the people that are listening, that building was in the movie The Wrestler, and you were in the movie The Wrestler. But I remember them having 2 rings in the Hasbrook Heights building. It was the high ring, the ring that was in the middle, the ring that we used for the show, the main ring, and there was a ring on the side.
Kind of like the beginner ring and the intermediate to advanced ring.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to. And Richie had at least 3 other rings, probably not in that building, but in storage at any given time. At least 3, maybe 7. I don't know. Dude would just buy rings. I mean, he had the money from his shoot job, and like he didn't have expensive hobbies, I guess, besides wrestling. And like
right.
he would complain about it all the time. He's like, man, I just can't stop buying rings. Someone's like, I'm only selling it for this much. He's like, I'll buy it.
What's funny? I saw a ring the other day for $700, and I was like, bro, if I had a place to put it, I would buy it, put it together, see what needs to be done, re-weld what needs to be re-welded, and store it somewhere. And if somebody needs a ring, I'll just rent out a ring. That's it.
Dude, even if it's a fixer-upper, like ours was in rough shape when we got it. But we fixed it. We had to throw the padding out because it smelled awful. Got new padding. The ropes didn't work. We had to get new ropes. but we made it work.
Like,
we paid $1,000 for our ring instead of like $4,000 or $5,000 for a new one. And eventually we got the good padding. Although if you bumped in that ring before like 2018, I'm so sorry.
Look, I was just about to say that I've bumped in your ring towards the end of 2019. You know, you guys usually run a little school down there at the Ridgefield Park Knights of Columbus. And, you know, I went down there once or twice, you know, because COVID wasn't a thing. And then COVID became a thing and we weren't able to go anymore. But I went down and I bumped in your ring. Bro, your ring is comfortable. Like, I'd sleep in your ring. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd sleep in it.
Yeah, when we started, it was not. But I appreciate that. And we didn't even spend that much money on the padding. I met a guy, 911's son, Dominic Truex, Vinny, and he was selling the padding for, like, I forget how much it was, but it was under $1,000. And when we first were looking at the rollout padding, the nice, comfortable padding, it was like, yeah, it's $500 or $600 to $700, but you got to pay to get it shipped, and you got to rent a truck. And I'm like, from North Carolina, from high spots, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, we had this thin ass padding. It was safe, but it was not comfortable.
Right.
It hurt like hell.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was able to take it because I was used to bumping in the BWO ring, which also safe, but not comfortable. A little, I wouldn't say it hurt, but it did sometimes.
So what made you want to go ahead and give your money to body slam you, to Richie Rotten, Magic, and Chaos?
So they all seemed like, well, Chaos scared the shit out of me right from the get-go. Although we've become friends since, and he was cool to me, but like I knew he would kill me if he had to, and I wouldn't ever want to make him feel like he had to. So yeah, Richie the same, and Magic too. I'm sure they could, especially back then, but. No, Chaos, like, he was a good dude, but man, yeah, I was like, this man has definitely murdered people before, and I don't know if I don't think he has actually, but at the time I was convinced, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna be next if I fuck with him. And then my tag team partner at the time decided to be a obnoxious loudmouth, which he's since grown up and is a great dude, but back then he was kind of an obnoxious loudmouth dude. And yeah, he decided to mouth off, and I'm like, okay, I'm good as long as I don't hit that level, I'm good. But yeah, no, they just, and Richie was like the head trainer. He seemed like very patient and like wanted to help, wasn't just trying to take my money, clearly, because it's $10 a session with no obligation.
Right.
Come once a week, 3-4 times a week. There's a weekly pay option too. I think it was like $30. He was open 5 days, so you could get 2 sessions for free. And then if you showed up twice, he won.
For me, it was
usually
different.
Guys would do that and then show up every time. So it was never about the money for him. That's what struck me, because like, yeah, I want to make money. I want to do this. I want to do that. But it was never about that, though. That wasn't like a circumstance of what I was doing. It's like, I'm going to do this and I'll get money for it someday. But that was never the motivation. And he was on the same wavelength with that, still is. So I was like, yeah, like, not that I had many options, because I didn't, but I'm like, well, this is definitely home, even if I had 10 options, you know. And I don't regret that at all. I definitely, and there's a lot of great schools out there that would have been more expensive. And, you know, I went on to train other places over the years, but
right.
Yeah, no regrets making that my first training school, none at all.
For me, it was a little different. I mean, because when I got there, it was in the Hasbrook Heights building, and Nunzio was there, so I paid obviously a little bit more. And I paid,
you got what you paid for, though.
Yeah, I definitely did, and I paid a lump sum, so I even got a little discount. You know, shame on anybody who didn't ask. You know, because I asked. I was a salesperson at the time, but I understand why Richie did the $10 fee, and a lot of places do that. It is called a mat fee. Because you come in and you pay that $10. Hey, if I train you, you become really good. Like we were towards 2012, 13, 2011, when we were going everywhere. It'll pay you back because people will now want to come see you on the show. So you'll make that money back in the other way if you're not in it for the money. And I get it and I understand.
Dude, I never took a payday from them, but I easily cleared $200 to $300 quite a few times just on merch, and I wasn't even that good. Like T-shirts and 8x10s, and the small photos, actually, like 5x7 photos, sold really well, because like you're not gonna put this big ass picture of one wrestler on your wall. Maybe like a show poster, but yeah, you got this little postcard one. Now I could buy 2 or 3 of them, and that was Richie's idea. And it was a great one. Maybe it was Nunzio. I don't know. I think it was Richie's, but it was around that time. So. Yeah, no, I easily cleared. Not every night. Some nights I'd make 50 or 100 or nothing, but it was getting the experience, and I knew with merch, if I come out with something new, I'll clear this much money eventually. And yeah, I was still in the red, but I mean, I felt good about it because like I made good merch money a couple times.
A lot of people don't give Richie Rotten his credit, and I think they always say give people their flowers while they're alive, and Richie Rotten does deserve his flowers because I never forget a lot of late nights after training we all used to go down to, I think it was the Saddlebrook Diner, and we'd all sit down there and we'd all talk, and Richie would teach us business. The only reason I use Google Docs and I learned how to make a website and email and how to promote myself and market myself in and out of professional wrestling is because of Richie Rotten. So I want to take this moment to say thank you, Richie, for everything that you've ever done for me. A lot of people may not say thank you, Richie. Some people out there may even say fuck Richie. But you know what? I'm going to say thank you, Richie.
He is a promoter, so I'm sure he knows he's going to get the fuck you, Richie, from some people. Maybe a lot. I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot of bad about the guy. But I know him personally, and I will say the same. I will go, thank you, brother. And I've thanked him before, because he helped get me a tryout one time. And, I've thanked him. I'll thank him again. Good dude and definitely good heart and a great mind. Those diner trips, he talks. He likes to talk. So those diner trips would be like a good 2 or 3 hours, but you get at least an hour and a half when you got past the jokes, the bullshitting, and all that fun stuff. You get at least a good hour and a half of fucking knowledge, just pure,
right,
just pure knowledge. So definitely great guy to just be around and be a fucking sponge, man. Just you were, I was, and some weren't, and that's on them. Maybe somewhere, maybe everybody learned so much from him. Great, but
I'm telling you, Richie could sit there and Richie could hold court. And if you paid attention, you would have learned something. Plenty of times outside of the venue, or we'd be wrestling, we'd just be sitting down on chairs after we're done, and he'd sit there and he would talk to us. And it almost felt like for me as a kid that never had a dad growing up, because my dad was a piece of shit, I would sit there and I'd be like, wow, this guy's really talking to me like a dad. He's like, yo, this is how you do this if you want to be successful. And I think I held a little bit of success. But Steve, if you can go back to yourself right before you entered pro wrestling school, what advice would you give yourself to prepare differently?
I would probably say hit the gym a little harder. And I got to go heavy, but hit the gym hard because I wasn't working out at all. I would do track and field and I'd walk jogs sometimes, but I did yoga, which was great. I still love yoga, but I wasn't lifting often. I'd lift maybe once a week. I would tell myself to go 3 or 4 times. I would say, get out of your own head. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't worry about anything because you're going to be exactly where you're supposed to be at all times if you just do your job. And that's not just wrestling. That's in anything, but specifically with wrestling, just shut up and listen, which I did, but just apply that shit a little better. And there's a million things I'd tell myself, but definitely definitely the gym thing. Cause that was my hold up for a long time. I was lucky. We got stuck with a gimmick. I thought it was quote unquote stuck at first. I fucking hated it. And then we did it. And I'm like, you know what? This works with the Off Brothers, Jerk and Jack. For anyone listening, that's exactly what you think it is. That's exactly why. And it was semi-PG, but the names were not. Today, probably would have been on TV. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, but everything happens for a reason.
You are part of the Off Brothers, and there was Jack Off, and there was Jerk Off.
During the Off Brothers, I was Jerk Off or ticked off on the PG shows that we did. Or we would just be the Off Brothers without first names if we were tagging. So I was proud of what I did with that, with Anthony and I mean, Rico and Joe were in it for a little bit, but mostly me and Anthony, that was the team. So I was proud of what we did. I didn't want to let go of that. And I already, in the 2 or 3 places I worked at the time, I already kind of had that rapport of being a one half of the Off Brother. I'm like, well, why change it? And so I was like, well, what about if I just use my real first name? Obviously, it can't be Jerk Off and get booked on shows. And
True.
Ticked Off sounds ridiculous. I hated doing the PG version. So I'm like, why don't I just be Steve the Jerk, in quotes, Off? And that's how it started. That's how I kind of transitioned out of it. I'm like, oh, people will chant Jerk Off at me. I'll be the nasty heel. I've never been a heel before. In pro, I did the backyard bullshit, which never got crazy. It was all just, friends throwing headlocks and punches at each other. But anyway, I started I'll keep the first name, use the Jerk as the middle name. They could start chanting Jerk Off, Jerk Off. If I turn babyface, I'll just get rid of that. If I stay heel, I'll come up with a different nickname. I went with your hero and role model, and I had like 15 other nicknames and gimmicks. I went through the fucking pinwheel of all of them, probably all of them. But no regrets. So that's how I just decided to keep it, the last name. And that way, if we ever reunite down the road, it's right there.
You guys did reunite for Pro Wrestling Magic a little bit ago.
Yeah. So we did 2 reunions. One was an actual advertised reunion match for VXS, Violence and Suffering. They got a show on Mania Week. They're killing it. They started just kind of as our little brother almost, and now they're just their own thing. Like, I didn't officially, but like, I helped the guy out, Orlando, who's a good dude. From my experience, and that's all I could speak from. Kind of helped them start, gave him a good deal on a ring rental, helped them out with the building that we're in, get a good deal on that. And then they just really just took off running. And, to their credit, they're still cool. Orlando is still cool to me. And, I'm glad to see their success. But we did a match for them. I'll always have a special place in my heart for them because they gave us that chance to do it one last time. Because on Magic, it was probably never going to happen because it was like their show at the time was just like, here's really good matches. Go. There's not too many storylines. We're very storyline based. So in Magic, it was very unlikely, although we did do a spot in the Chad Adams Memorial Rumble with the Off Brothers, which was awesome to be able to do because he would have loved it. But yeah, those are 2 reunions we did. I'm open to other ones, although I think Anthony's kind of done with being in the ring. I think he just wants to kind of do the commentator and, on-air authority figure and the behind-the-scenes stuff. But, I mean, I'm open to it. Or a singles match. You never got that blow-off.
Speaking of reunions, I was talking to Richie, maybe in 2018, Richie Rotten, and I was telling him that we should do a BWO reunion show, that we should do something like even – make it like a Tony Scoff memorial show for, Tony Scoff, who was one of the pillars of BWO when it was, I think it was when it was in its prime. And Richie, I know you'll probably be listening. I still would love to do the BWO show.
I don't think you will, but I'd love to be proven wrong. Most of the times when I'm right about something, I'd kind of rather be wrong. And it's just one of those times.
I know that he's told me as well, too, that he doesn't want to do it, but, bro, I would love for him to do it. Just one last time. I know he doesn't want to do it
full-time again, and I get that. But as a one-off, I mean, I'm not in his shoes, so I really don't get that either, whether he would or not. I don't know. I don't know why he'd feel either way, but, I mean, I would think, why not? Except there's not that many of us that work anymore. There's like me, you, Darius. I mean, there's others like Chris Dickinson, he's probably not coming back. He's in New Japan now.
Right.
And good for him. He's always cool to me.
But you still have Joey Janela. I mean, I don't know if AEW will let him work.
I don't know if Richie would want to pay him what he's probably going to ask.
True. You're right.
But no, he's still working. He did pretty well. I don't think he was in BWO long, but he was there.
Well,
that's all I could think of. And Team Thomas occasionally works, and Eric Corvus, but it's a short list. So, I mean, not that guys wouldn't work. Preach still works, here and there. I don't know how often, but he's got a handful of matches left in him, I believe, at least, maybe 2. Brother probably fucking outwork all of us.
Sure
He'll
will.
Probably be working until he's like 180.
Sure will.
And
stretching people.
He's too stubborn to ever die, so he'll just like retire one day, but it'll be like in his 180s. So, I mean, listen, as long as he can still do it, and he can, and be good at it, which he is, go for it. But I mean, man, I'd love to see BWO one time only reunion farewell show, whatever you want to call it. It would be cool. Even if we had 5 matches and everybody has to work like 30 minutes, I'm down for that.
I mean,
it's going to be 25 minutes of headlocks, but I'm down for it. That last 5 minutes is going to be good.
I was going to say, if that was the case, you got to let me know ahead of time. I never forget, Steve, the time when you and I had to work a 2 out of 3 falls match. I think it was for the BWO Championship. While everyone is working behind me to make the Tristen Law Show better, I wanted to take a quick timeout to ask you to subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars and leave a review. Now, let's get back to the show. And I don't think I ever told you this, bro. I was so nervous to wrestle that match, to work that match with you, because I was like, at that time, dude, I was a cardio machine. I couldn't run on the treadmill, but dude, I can go in the ring and I could be mat wrestling for minutes and with no problem. I'm like, come on, just keep sending them. But I was nervous that I was going to blow up the entire time. And the entire match, I was in my head the entire match. And I honestly know if I was out of my head and I just relaxed and trusted myself, we could have had even a better match.
Yeah. And that's still one of my favorite ones just because of the build up. It was a good match too, but just the build up for it and the emotion involved and the people were so friggin' hot for it. And like, we were just two indie guys, but they were so hot. That was the program. Like, they were hot for it. And then, you know, you got the win and then we just drifted away. And I was just like, what? Okay. I mean, I don't mind putting them over, but we're not going to go back to it later. No. Okay. I mean, it was a good match. So a good way to end it, but yeah, I wish we would have gone a little longer and like, you know, still me putting you over in the end, no problem. But I think we should have gone longer, traded it back and forth a little bit, and then you get the last win. But I don't think that should have been the first win. Shouldn't have been the last win. I think we could have gone longer with it. But there's creative had different ideas, so
and they went with it.
It still worked. Shit, we could have killed it in like an Iron Man match as the blow off. Like, oh man, just looking back on it, I should have pitched all this, but I didn't have the knowledge back then to think of all this. So.
Me neither. I was when I was so young in my wrestling career, I didn't pitch advice. I just took advice. Whatever you wanted me to do, and as long as I felt that it was safe, I would go ahead and I would do it. If I felt it was something crazy, like somebody said to me one time, "Hey, brother, you want to take a power driver?" I said, "No, not taking a power driver." No. But like, if somebody had come to me back then and said, "Hey, you know, help me put together the storyline between you and Steve," I don't actually think, no, I know I wouldn't have been able to coherently do it. Somebody probably would have laughed at me and said, "Bro, is that how your mind really works?" Just takes time.
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's still, like I said, one of my favorite matches, regardless of the fact that there should have been more of them.
I agree.
Still one of my favorites. And that the whole angle where we kidnapped you to force you to give me one more shot was just gold. Like,
I remember that. You guys
we would
me
never
outside.
get away with that today, but I would be in jail. They'd be like, "You kidnapped a man. It's real to me."
We'd break the
After
internet.
calling it fake 5 minutes before that. But no, the whole angle, the whole match, fucking love it, man. I'm gonna go watch it. I'm gonna try to find it like when I'm at work tomorrow and just see.
Can you send it
see
to
if I
me?
can find it. It's got to be on YouTube.
Of course, it exists somewhere. So
I'm pretty sure I put it on YouTube, even though I wasn't supposed to, but I did it anyway because it was that good.
So this day and age, Steve, you're one half of the American Murder Society.
Mm-hmm.
What is the American Murder Society, and how did you guys team up?
Oh, we just murder people, and our lawyer tells us not to talk about it, basically.
Okay.
No, it's so the character. We're both kind of big into horror movies. I know he loves Nightmare on Elm Street. We haven't talked about much other than that horror wise, but I'm a huge horror. I love Scream. I love Jason, Freddy, all of it.
And for the listeners, who's he?
Alex Ryman.
There you go. Okay.
Vince McMahon with them pronouns. He'd be going nuts, from what I've heard. He's not a fan of them. He, she, they. No. Not a fan. That's cool. That's his decision. But yeah, no, it was kind of like we were doing this thing in Magic where it was kill the Magic. We were like the anti-company. We were almost the NWO or like the, name any other heel stable that's like anti-establishment. That was us. We did it differently, but it was the same basic idea. It was the same brainchild, Bullet Club, whatever you want to call it, like that same, one of those same factions that was just either taking over or destroying or both a promotion. So originally I was going to be a single, which I felt weird about. I was doing singles at the time. I felt weird about it because like I'm part owner and one of the creative guys. I probably shouldn't be giving myself the main event singles push, and we need the main event belt at some point to legitimize us. So we kind of switched gears, went with Brooklyn Outlaw Donovan, then known as Mike Donovan, but he dropped his first name. So Gabe from Evolve told him to drop it, and he listened. I think that's how it happened. I don't know, or he just forgot what his first name was. I'm just Donovan. But either way, Donovan wound up being the main event guy, which was a great decision because now he's the only guy still with Pro Wrestling Magic who is on the WWE Network so far, besides one of the referees, but the only in-ring competitor that's on WWE Network so far. So I guess that was a good decision and a good worker too. And I was like, well, okay, am I going to be the secondary heel? I don't mind that so much. But other members were kind of like falling off and they weren't, getting the reaction we'd hoped. And then somebody, I think it was Shane Fair, who's now a ring announcer, was a fan back then. And he posted a GIF of Shane Fair, who's now a ring announcer, was a fan back then. And he posted a GIF of Shane Fair, who's now a ring announcer, was a fan back then. And he posted a GIF of Shane Fair, who's now a ring announcer, was a fan back then. or made a GIF and posted it of me and Alex doing some kind of taunt to him. It was funny as hell. And I'm like, yeah, there's something there. There's something there. And we were feuding in another company, D2W, and we were having some pretty good matches that nobody saw. Because like it's a small venue, they can't, they were sold it out, and there was still like 80 people there, maybe. And the outdoor shows too. But so we worked a loop over there. It was like, oh, we have good chemistry. Maybe we'll work a feud at Magic one day. Who knows? But then that GIF came out. A GIF is the reason that this tag team's going on right now. That's how it started. I texted him. I'm like, dude, I know you're doing singles right now and still mine. We're feuding over here, which makes no sense. But hey, how do you feel about this? He's like, dude, I love it. Let's do it. There's something there. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll do it. And we wound up doing it, and it just worked. And the name American Murder Society, I was drunk one night. I don't drink often, so it didn't take much. I was drunk one night off of like one shot of tequila, maybe two, more, and I'd be sleeping on your couch or my couch or someone's couch. So I was drinking, watching American Horror Story, and I'm like, yo, it'd be cool if we could do something like that with that logo. And I'm like, I had another half a shot, and like, American Murder Society, AMS instead of AHS, but same idea. And it just kind of stuck. I texted it to him immediately. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And he was very enthusiastic about that. So it just kind of stuck. And we don't actually murder people, as far as you know, but there's a movie out where it's like a snuff film. It's pretty cool. It's on GoPro Wrestling's YouTube page. It's a two-parter. It's like a short horror movie. I definitely think we're going to do a sequel eventually. It's called The Hunting Games. Look it up. It's a lot of fun. I have no reason to promote that. It's not monetized, but still go watch it.
That's pretty cool how you guys became a tag team off of something like that. And I love Alex. I see Alex, when it's not snowing and when the weather's better, I'm at ECPW at Gino, and I see you there from time to time. And
I try to get there at least once a week, but yeah, he's come a long way.
Yeah.
He was, and I'll tell him this. I've probably told him this. He had no idea who he was. He had no gimmick. He was a good dude and he had some talent, but he didn't know who the fuck he was. He was just another wrestler in like blue gear at the time who, could work and was talented, but so is everybody. So how are you going to stand out?
Right.
And then, we kind of both, and I was kind of treading my, wheels a little bit too, and this kind of came along at the perfect time because he was starting to get pretty good, but had no idea who he was. I mean, he knew who he was as a person, but like as a character, he had no clue who he was going to be or what he was going to do, or and the Kill the Magic thing came along, and I was kind of treading my wheel. I'm like, I don't want to push my, and then it just all came together. They say everything happens for a reason. Most of these like tag teams or this angle or the shit that winds up being really big and successful happened like just because of like something stupid. Or something seemingly stupid on the surface, but like, and then it just snowball effect in the best way.
I will say though that I do think it's funny how you did think of the name American Murder Society, AMS, while you were drunk, and that's why I always liked hanging out with you when we had to go travel on the road when we went out to West Virginia or Maine or wherever we went, because we didn't really drink.
No,
that wasn't really our
really
thing.
Don't.
I still really don't drink now. Like I got some Modelo's in the fridge, and I know if I drink two of them right now, like I'm done. I'm going to bed. That's it. Adios.
I enjoy it, but I never got into like do every night and like, nah, man. Like it's cool if you do, but I don't. Like,
right.
I can't.
Yeah, I can't do that either. It makes my stomach bigger. So tell everybody about the time that you appeared on WWE television. Start from the beginning. How did it happen?
So the first time was out in California. My dad is very good friends with their then head of security, Jimmy Noonan, who's like also an actor. You've probably seen him in Super Troopers, and if you haven't, go watch it again. He's the main heel. So my dad and him were tight, and he was leaving. He knew he was leaving. He's like, listen, I know your kid's not ready yet, but he cuts a good promo, and he's a decent enough bumper that maybe they'll see something in him. And I can't do anything for you after this point. Like I still got friends there, but I'm not going to be there anymore. I can do nothing for you directly after this point. Do you want to bring him in now? And that's their first impression of him. He's not bad. He's not going to get a job over it, but it could lead to something down the road if they like him even a little bit. And my dad was like, I'll ask him. He asked me. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like if I shit the bed, that's on me. And if I do that at like 21 years old, I think they'll forgive me 5 or 10 years down the road. And I didn't shit the bed. I was okay. Like I didn't do a lot. I did, some stuff in the ring with the extras and didn't embarrass myself. So you know, that worked out. Got to be on TV as a security guard, which was cool. Like now everybody does it, but you know, it was, even back then it was done a lot, but it was still cool just to be like this much of a footnote in WWE and wrestling TV history on one episode of Raw was cool as hell. I'm like, you know what? It ain't ending here. But if it ends here with WWE and I wind up doing something else, cool. At least I did that. It's like this big, you know, this minute little spot. But hey, if that's all I get, at least I got something.
So that was the first time. How does somebody find it? What episode of Raw was it on?
So it was, I don't know if they're allowed to air it anymore because Donald Trump was on it, but it was the Battle of the Billionaires. It was the lead. I don't remember the exact date. It was February 26th, I think, of 2007. If I'm correct. They announced Bobby Lashley as the guy that was representing Trump, who was the babyface at the time, if you could believe that, going against Vince McMahon. So I guess that's, you know, so kind of easy to believe back then.
So if anybody's watching, if anybody, when they're listening and they're trying to figure it out, just to help everybody out, the Battle of the Billionaires, it took place at WrestleMania 23. So what you'd be looking for on the WWE Network or YouTube is the episodes leading up to WrestleMania 23.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that would be 2007. And like I said, I think it was February 26th. That date is sticking out for me. But that could just be the date I had some beautiful woman over, and you know what, I won't get into that. But it could be something different like that. I don't really remember those dates, so it's probably the right one. So could have been the 25th to the 27th. I don't know. I went on a couple-day loop with them, and that's just the only thing I did. SmackDown I was at, and I got paid to do nothing, which was nice. I'd rather work for my money, but if you're going to pay me to sit there, I'm going to sit there. That's cool.
So in 2007, obviously I understand it's a lot different now. So tell us what it was like being backstage at a WWE event in 2007. Let's start from the second that you got the notification that you were going to be backstage and you were going to be able to wrestle.
So I had just gotten in a car accident, my first. It wasn't major, but I was pretty pissed off, and I was going to kill this dude. And back then, I don't know if I could have, but he looked kind of like a bitch. So I was thinking about it. And, you know, my parents came out because I called them. The car was in my dad's name because, you know, the insurance was cheaper. So fuck it.
Right.
Even though I'm the only one that used it, it was like in his name. Now mine's in my name. Insurance went up. That's fun. But anyway, yeah, they came out to, you know, just to be witnesses and to look and make sure everything was all right. And they're like, oh, by the way, you're going to WWE. I'm like, I'm fucking what now? They're like, yeah, we just got the call from Jimmy. He hooked it up. They got approved by management. They don't care. They're down for one more extra. I'm like, oh, great. I'm cool. Great. One of the worst moments of my fucking life so far, but hey, it's pretty good now. And then going backstage, man, like, so me and my dad flew. He went out with me because he wanted to get away from my mom, I guess. Anyway, so he came with me to check and to hang out with Jimmy because we didn't know when we'd see him again. He was leaving WWE. We'd always go hang with him at the shows, and there weren't going to be shows. So, you know, he was talking about moving out to LA. We're like, yeah, we're never going to see this dude. So let's hang out one more time. Went out to dinner, chilled, checked out the house show, and that was cool. That was like the calm before the storm. And then the next day I got backstage and I'm like, I'm literally, not literally, but I'm literally feeling like I'm going to shit my pants the entire day. I'm like, I'm going to piss somebody off, and that's not going to go well. And they're never going to want me back. I was overthinking it. Like you with the Iron Man match, not the Iron Man, the 2 out of 3 Falls match we did. Same shit. Except if I really did fuck up here, I really probably would be done. Back then, I mean, now you might get second, third, fourth chances, but like back then it was very, the business in general, not WWE. I didn't work there, you know, full time more than like a night, but the business back then in general was very cutthroat and very shady. And like, I didn't know who was cool and who wasn't cool. And like, I'm just going to say hello to everyone that comes past me. I'm not going to go out of my way. I'm not going to ignore anyone. I'm just going to kind of play that middle ground. And that worked out. But yeah, it was very nerve wracking. And then when I'm about to go through the curtain, I'm like, I'm pacing. I'm like, they're going to think I'm like on crack or something. I'm not. So let me stop and chill, breathe. I'm probably going to be okay. Worst case, Umaga or Lashley will kill me and it'll get on TV and that'll be my legacy. It's something. They were cool and they didn't kill us, any of us. But somebody did get to spear tackle Bobby Lashley when he was beating up Umaga on the floor, and it wasn't me, but people think it was. Chaos swore it was me. I was like, dude, I wish, but no.
Hmm.
That and the man would have murdered me, maybe, possibly.
So was there anybody backstage that you met that you were like, wow, it was really cool meeting that person?
I mean, everybody was really cool. The first time out, the second time when I went to the Garden and, Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Undertaker were back there and everybody was like surprisingly cool. I thought like, I was afraid. I'm like, they're big stars. They're going to not give a shit about us. Everybody was cool. But like 2007, no one specifically really stands out. Shelly Martinez backstage at SmackDown, talked to for a little bit. She seemed nice. But, everybody was cool. Like everybody just kind of did their job and went about their business. And everyone, for the most part that passed by came to say hi to the extras. So, I know people say it's a very negative place. I wasn't there often. I was there like as an extra 3 times, but never got that vibe, although it was like very tense just because there was so much, everyone was feeling like I was feeling, I'm sure. Like, oh, if I fuck this up, I'm done.
Right.
Probably even the guys under contract. But it was overall a cool experience. Nobody was outwardly a dick. Like, and I expected at least 1 or 2 people would be, but no.
So, Steve, a few weeks ago on social media, your son Luke found some of the props from the gun show.
Oh my God. Yep.
I know what the gun show is because I think I played a part in one episode where I got kidnapped or something like that. But
yes.
But what?
We used the footage of the BWO kidnapping angle.
Yes, I do. I remember that. So what is the gun show? Let's not make it an inside joke. What is the gun show? So
the gun show was just, I got bored one day and The Miz was doing something on, I don't remember if it was YouTube or WWE.com at the time. He was doing some, the dirt sheet or something with John Morrison. And I'm like, this show's okay, but I could do it better. No disrespect intended to them. It was good, but I could do it great. And at first I was wrong. It was the shits, but I cut promos on the first one. I was like talking about the election and this and that. I'm like, well, both guys suck, which is true for the past, since I've been alive. But I threw my candidacy and I'm like, if you write me in, I'll be a great president. Or I think that was the promo I did there. I don't remember, but it was, and I promoted an upcoming show. It was all right. It was supposed to be like a here and there thing. And then we did an episode where me and my dad, who was my manager at the time, went meatball hunting because the guy I was about to wrestle was large and Italian. I'm part Italian, so I'm allowed to say the meatball thing, but it was definitely fat shaming and would not fly today at all. But it was funny. He was dressed in like a ghillie suit, head to toe, with like camouflage and had a toy gun, and it was like a toy brain from like a squishy toy brain. And we just colored it brown so it looked like a meatball. And this was his idea, sober, by the way, which is weird. Usually his good ideas and mine are both drunk. But yeah, and I don't drink often. That's why I don't have good ideas. So we went meatball hunting, and then I was like, all right, that was funny, but like, what are we going to do now? There's something there. It was funny, entertaining. I had fun doing it, more importantly than all that. But, what else is there? And I'm like, well, what if I had a housekeeper? Yeah, I was an arrogant heel who was doing I'm a delusional guy who thinks he's a Hollywood star, kind of like the Miz is doing now, like something similar to that, but with my own twist on it. Before he was doing it, I'm sure he didn't see it. I wasn't significant enough for anybody to watch, but yeah. So it was basically delusional guy who thinks he's a Hollywood star because he did 2 indie movies, and Miz has done more than that. But I'm just saying, same basic idea. I was like, okay, wouldn't a guy like that have a housekeeper? Wouldn't a guy like that have a guy in a wrestling mask clean up for him? And yeah, probably. So I'd had a lucha mask lying around. I always used to bring a mask to the shows in case, this is a Richie thing that I don't know if he told everybody or got to teach everyone this. It's not like one of the main lessons, but
I do it.
It's like, always bring a mask and a referee shirt in case you got to work 3 times. I'm like, what? It's like, well, if they need a ref, you got a ref gear. If they need a wrestler, you got your gear. If they need 2 wrestlers, you got a mask. You get paid twice. I'm like, okay, threw the mask in my bag and only pulled it out until, or didn't pull it out until we needed it for the gun show. And that was El Rotundo Genioso. I won't reveal who played him, but I'm sure you could all figure it out. And it just kind of took off. We're trying to be like a live action South Park, and we went a little too far a couple times, but it was all part of the show. It was all in good fun. I don't think we were ever super, super offensive, but we definitely used the F and ass words a lot and did some things we probably shouldn't have done, like whipping boots at my housekeeper's face.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that was kind of fun. Fuck it. No regret on that one. But yeah, we did some over the top shit. My dad knew someone at Comedy Central who saw it, like who knew somebody, and he was like, "Hey, we'll give you $5,000 for the show." And I'm like, "No, because this is helping my wrestling career, and I stand to make a lot more than $5,000 if this helps me get over." Which, I mean, probably should have taken the $5,000 and done something similar, but you know.
So they want to take the $5,000, put you guys on Comedy Central?
No. If it was going to be us, I would have taken it easily. But he's like, "Oh, they might want to buy the concept for $5,000." I'm like, "But then we couldn't do it anymore." He's like, "No." I'm like, "Listen, we're starting to get a little traction off this. People think it's funny.
Yeah.
I can't risk that right now over a couple grand. Today I would do it." But, you know, looking back on it, I don't know if it was the right call or not, but it is what it is. And I don't even know if that person had any merit to make that offer.
Right.
It could have just been like one of his friends who knows somebody who's like, "Well, I could probably get this done."
So Steve, that was pretty cool how you were talking about the gun show and everything else like that. But
yeah, man, the gun show was a lot of fun, and it's not dead. It's on a hiatus. It's just been on a hiatus for like 4 years, but eventually we'll do more stuff, I think, because like I have some ideas.
I'm looking forward to it. But Steve, what would you say is the highest moment of your career to date?
Oh shit.
This is when the tough questions start.
Oh man. There were two. The first one, definitely number one, would be Kingdom Come, the first one.
The first magic show?
So much went wrong leading up to that show, and I'll go a little in depth on it, but so much went wrong leading up to that show. Literally everything that could have gone wrong, except for like the main talent bailing on the show, went wrong. There were flights delayed. There was this, there was that. Everything you could imagine besides top talent pulling off the show, that's what we had to deal with. We did have, I forget who it was. It was one guy that we hadn't announced yet, but it was like a mid-level name. I forget who it was, but he was supposed to wrestle Ace Romero. The guy bailed, and we wound up getting Sami Callihan, which was really cool. Like, I think it was JT Dunn told us, he was like, "Hey, Sami's booking opened up. His show got canceled. You guys want him?" And we're like, "Yeah." And then he gave us the discount because it was last minute. That's what started Ace Romero in Pro Wrestling Magic. So it was kind of cool. But that show, Cody Rhodes, JT Dunn, main event, we had standing room only that night. We definitely broke fire code that night by a lot. But, you know, hindsight being 20/20, I'd do it again. And just knowing all the effort that went into that one show, and that it was, if we didn't do good on this show, we were done. It was not even a question about it. There was so much money and effort that went into it, and it was so hyped that if it flopped, we were done. No one would ever take us seriously. We would probably be broke. I mean, my business partner makes good money at his shoot job, so maybe we wouldn't have been broke, but like we would have been done. It would have been one and done. But, you know, and just knowing all that came into that, and there was a moment during that night, it was me, Anthony, and Chad Adams, who was since passed away, but he was one of the co-founders of the company, and we all just kind of group hugged, and he goes, "Man, we did it." And Chad goes, "Yeah, we did it. We pulled it off." I said, "Yeah, I knew we would, but this is just day one, man. This ain't the end. This ain't like the big climax. Now it's an awesome show, and then this is the beginning." And yeah, that was a really cool moment. The second one would be debuting with WWN, just because like when I was younger, I'd watch like JAP, I'd watch Ring of Honor, and I'd watch FIP, which was like the top indie in Florida, and still is, I believe. Definitely one of them. Mm-hmm. And man, I was always like, you know what? I can at least be a part of that. I'm good. If I don't make WWE or, you know, New Japan, those are my, like, as a kid, those are like my two goals. And like, if I don't make one or both of those, maybe I could make one of these. Maybe I could do that. Like, so I'd always watch that with that inspiration. Maybe I could be like the big indie guy at the very least, and then we ended up getting the opportunity to go down to the WWN to work for their, I think it's a fed that's kind of attached to their school, ACW. And we impressed for whatever reason. I guess they have low standards. They're like, "Oh, they're from Jersey. They're going to suck." We did okay. They're like, "Oh my God, great." So we did really good on the first, it was a Tuesday night show. We got invited back for a Saturday night for one of their pay-per-views, killed it on that. And I don't know if FIP is coming back, but I'm pretty sure we'll be part of it if it does. I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but we did very well twice. And, you know, that math adds up to me. These guys are not super expensive. They're worth their price. and they did good twice. They didn't just get lucky; they did pretty good twice. Got a good reaction. Almost started a riot one night. Almost had one woman jump over the guardrail. It was great.
That's heat, brother. That's heat.
But yeah, it wasn't to that point. But if I pushed her, or if Alex pushed her a little more, she was jumping.
I try to push her.
We scaled back though. I'm like, man, I know they say COVID doesn't exist in Florida, but I think it does, and I don't want it if she has it. So
I almost had somebody jump the guardrail one time, dude. I was pushing them so bad. I said, come on, fatso. I said, you probably can't even get your legs over the guardrail to come over here, much less climb in the ring and see me face to face. And I was like, oh my God, if he comes in this ring, I'm going to have to knock his ass out.
Yeah. What you do is when they're climbing through the rope, you hit the rope with their side and knock them off the apron. If it's the guy you don't know, if you know you could take him, he's not an MMA guy, he's scrawny, whatever, cool. But if he looks like he might know what he's doing and you don't want to take the chance, or you don't want to, get a win that kind of hurts a little bit, hit the rope with your side, he go flying off. Richie told us that early on, that Harley used to do that back in the day, Harley race. He's like, yeah, if there was a guy I really didn't want to fight, or if he wasn't the plant, I would just knock him off the apron. Not because he was afraid to fight him. It was Harley fucking race, but I guess because, don't want to get sued. I don't know. Or stay out of my fucking ring. Or I had a guy almost try to get in the ring with me one time. He almost made it too, but BWO security was really good, as you know.
Jimmy Biff.
And they just pulled that motherfucker off the apron. Hands off, and Jimmy Biff. Mm-hmm. And then Chaos and Richie were like, drag him to the river. We'll handle it. I'm like, oh, all right. I'm going to go check this out.
So, who has been your biggest motivator in your pro wrestling career?
Man, there's so many, but probably Richie Rotten, just because he always pushed me to be better. And there are others like when Chaos would train, he was a good motivator, and Delirious. And we went up to Ring of Honor school for a bit, and Nunzio was good. They were all good, but knowing your OG trainer, or and Chaos moved, that's why. Otherwise, they'd probably be saying both of them, because he probably would have kept coaching wrestling. But he moved to Colorado, so Richie was the number one, because he wouldn't accept less than your best. And when you were doing your best, he knew you could do better, or you could learn to do better if you weren't there yet. And that always pushed me. I'm like, all right, well, you think I'm going to be better? Well, fuck you. I'm going to prove you right.
We've mentioned Richie Rotten a lot in here, and we know Richie's listening. What's the thing you want to tell Richie the most?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, God, I obviously tell him thank you for everything he's done, which I've already done and will do again. But that's kind of a boring answer. So, man, I would probably just tell him the reason I wouldn't say I'm that great, but the reason I pushed to get to this point, to get this far, is because he was the original one pushing me. And even when he wasn't there, even when I was training with someone else, I'd tell myself, Rotten would say, motherfucker, get up and do it again, do it better. And I do it. Maybe not better, but I'd at least try to do it again. But yeah, a lot of my motivation comes from within too, because, and now I got a son, so he's legit. Outside the business, my biggest motivator isn't even close. It's definitely Luke. Definitely my son, because I got to build a legacy for him. I can't just, being a good dad is good, but is it enough? I mean, probably, but not in my mind. That's not. I got to not only be a good dad, but I got to show him, this is how you make your dreams come true. This is how you do what you've always wanted to do, and stand up and say, fuck you, you're wrong, I'm right, and I'm going to do it. I might do it your way, I might do it my way, but it's going to fucking happen. Whether that's wrestling or not, and I hope that he picks something more stable. But then again, what is stable in 2021 and forward for a career? But he just needs to see in my mind that, I had good parenting, good grandparenting and all that, and that's great. But I also saw what happens when you don't back the fuck down and you just do whatever it is that takes, whatever it takes to get to where you're going, and don't accept any less. And if I can't show him that, then I'm, what good am I, right? I mean, I'm still a good dad, but that's half the battle. If I can't do that, I failed, and I can't do that. So, I can't fail. So, high pressure, putting a lot of pressure on myself, and that's not just wrestling. That's just in general.
I think you're doing all right.
I think so. Thank you.
Who is Steve Off?
Steve Off, outside the ring, loving family man, and guy who likes to work out and all that. But in the ring, vicious killer, will hurt anyone and do anything to succeed. And for the right reasons, because he's got a kid at home that he's got to feed. If that means you don't walk out of this ring, whoever's across the ring from me, that's what it's going to be. If that means, I team up with this dude and that dude, and, we kick a couple guys' asses together, and I got to play nice with others, which besides Alex Ryman, I don't play nice with anybody, then so be it. That's what we do. A man who will literally do anything to get what he feels is his. And right now, that's tag team wrestling on a silver platter. And if you're in a tag team and you work with us, come ready to work. We're not going to do a bunch of flips and stuff, but, if you do, that's fine. We'll catch you. Might drop you on your head purposely, but we'll catch you. But bring your best, because we are. We're not the best, but we're going to perform like we are. And we're going to perform that way until we are.
So things like YouTube and this podcast, the Tristen Law Show, are things that will keep us alive forever. What do you want your pro wrestling legacy to be?
I'd love to get like a TV gig at some point, whether it be AMS or solo, or the AMS is the focus right now. So that would be nice to see that pan out, whether that be Pro Wrestling Magic taking off huge and getting TV, which is not in the cards, but never know. Whether that be, Ring of Honor, TNA, Impact, WWE, AW, wherever. I want the legacy to be a guy who had a good run on TV, guy who had a good run behind the scenes, and guy who was kind of an asshole sometimes, but was never a true piece of shit in this true sense of the word. Because none of us are perfect. We all have our asshole moments, and I'm not going to ever deny that I did or do, and still have plenty left. But that's how I want to be remembered.
Well, what's next for Steve Off?
Pro Wrestling Magic, the Ides of March, will air on Fight TV. You can check on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, Pro Wrestling Magic. Follow us. Check for more details, but it will be on March the 20th on Fight TV. Man, I wish I knew, but in today's world, success. That's more of a long-term thing, because in today's world, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow or next month. But it looks like at the time we were taping this, that things are starting to open up a little bit more. COVID vaccines rolling out. The world will probably be open. I'm not a doctor or a vaccine expert, but I would imagine by summertime or shortly after, we'll be at least close to back to normal, or maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know. Big things and success. However you guys listening want to take that, cool. But in general, that's what's next. Hopefully that could be tomorrow, but probably just within the year.
Well, Steve, it was so fun having you here today, hanging out with you, taking a quick talk about you and a little bit about magic. I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. But tell everybody tell everybody how they can find you on social media and how they can keep up with you.
All right, so I'm on Facebook at Steve Off, and I don't think I have any friend requests left. I think I'm at 5,000 maxed out. So you could also follow me and get just about the exact same content at I Hate Steve Off on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. It is Steve Off. If you don't know who he is, he told you how to find him. Don't go anywhere, because when I get back, I'm going to tell you what I think about this interview and who will be here next week on The Tristen Law Show.
Hello to all of you Tristen Law Show podcast listeners. This is Frank Mandolini. You may not recognize this voice. I am the Italian podcaster who talks about the business side of wrestling. Yeah, I know, it's quite niche. But if you look for last minute wrestling podcast on all of your social media and wherever you get your podcast, you've been amazed to find interviews with people such as Rob Van Dam or Matthew Gregg from Botchamania and many others, so you get to know many aspects of the wrestling business that normally you don't hear in wrestling podcasts. Because let's face it, who wants to hear another guy talk about Monday Night Raw? Yeah, me neither. So guys, go to lmwpodcast.com or search for LMW Podcast everywhere in the interweb. And remember guys, this is Frank Mandolini from the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, and you stay safe.
Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. We're looking to promote your band or brand here on the Tristen Law Show. All you've got to do is just contact the show at tristenlawshow.com or send an email to tristenlawshow@gmail.com for more info. That was Steve Off. What did you think? Check out Pro Wrestling Magic on social media. Get their pay-per-views on Fight.tv. Look, let me tell you something. They're great people, and they produce quality content. I always say support the smaller guys like you support the bigger guys. You may like what you see, but Steve, I want to thank you for the time, and I'll see you soon. To your mother and father who I have not seen in a long time, shout out to you guys. Love y'all. I'll see you guys soon as well, too. Next time on the Tristen Law Show, I'm going to introduce you to one of the top-ranked high school football players on Long Island turned pro wrestler. Representing New York Wrestling Connection in Deer Park, Long Island, I can't wait for you to hear from Zach Ramses. We're going to talk about his high school football career, his collegiate football career, how he got into pro wrestling, and everything else that he's been doing since then, up to now. However, if you subscribe, you're going to get notified when his episode drops, and let me tell you a little secret. It's free. You hear that again somewhere. I don't know where, but just trust me. You hear that again. If you like this episode, I need a favor from you. Yes, I am talking to you. Share this on your favorite social media platform, and don't forget to tag myself for the show. Don't make this be the thing that you do. Make this be the thing that we do. You can also walk up to a random stranger and tell them to listen to the Tristen Law Show. Yeah, they may think you're crazy, but who cares what other people think, right? Fine. If you're worried about being judged, go on over to tristenlawshow.com and at least buy a shirt. People think that you're really cool. Rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, please. Reviews mean a lot. Whichever podcast platform you're using to listen, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. The best part is that it's free. Learn about myself and the Tristen Law Show by typing tristenlawshow.com in your internet-enabled device for more info. I'll be waiting for you next week. I'm Tristen Law, and you've been listening to the Tristen Law Show. And until next time, adios.